That's true. I know it's literally 2 minutes in and we're already just dropping like massive bars, just like right out.
I think that's actually a huge perspective shift of like just trying to figure out life is actually a fun process rather than a stressful one.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people like they plan so much it takes the mystery out of just living every day because like so much can happen when you don't plan for it, so it's like I like that, but at the same time it's like whoa, there's a lot of stuff happening that I definitely did not plan for and I don't know what to do, but I'm gonna figure it out. It's gonna be fine, but it does leave like a lot of room for things to happen to you, and I think that that's really cool. That's how I like to live, but not everybody would agree with those methods.
You know what? I wholeheartedly agree with that. And something that I've started to live by because I used to be in the place of like need to plan everything out, need to stay right on track, etc. We reference it now as like a plan, not a Bible.
Mm,
Whereas when you think of the Bible, it's like this hard reading, and like you think of religion, which is like this hard following of practices. When realistically, if your head's so buried down in the mud, you like don't realize all the opportunities in front of you, right?
right.
You like miss an opportunity here or there, you're not really in the position to even be open to that opportunity. So that's why I kind of like to say a plan, not a Bible, because sometimes you take a left when you should have took a right, and other times you took a right when you should have took a left. But you learn that that wasn't your direction for you, and then something falls in your lap that you didn't even realize was what you're supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
which may or may not be the case for you.
Yeah, that's true. I know it's literally 2 minutes in and we're already just dropping like massive bars, just like right out.
So you've really like turned your passion for pickleball into just about a full-time career now, right?
Mhm.
Which being an outsider looking in is really not it's not a small feat. It's actually fairly challenging, right? Comes with many challenges. Can you share a specific moment when you feel like this actually chose you rather than you choosing it?
Ooh, I like that. That's a really good question. Um, I think that I'm the type of person, I'm not afraid of the unknown because kind of like what we were just talking about, like we'll figure it out. Whatever happens, you can figure it out. And the moment that you stop trying to think that you can figure it out is the moment that you're going to be at a stalemate for the rest of your life. So like just having the mindset of like you can figure anything out, I think is huge. And so at the same time, it's like if I always want a feeling of security. And whenever I was debating about do I take pickleball full time, at that moment I was working at a coffee shop that I had opened with a friend of mine. I'd worked there for 7 years. I was the manager of the shop. A very stable job, as a 9 to 5 type thing. It's like I went in there, loved my customers. It was amazing. Like I loved doing it, but there was nothing out of the ordinary about it. It was just a very consistent thing to have. And, with pickleball, it's like this industry is just opening up. It's just booming. Like, I don't even fully know what it looks like navigating this, let alone like I didn't go to school for content creation or social media management. Like, I'm learning everything myself as I go. And so I think for me, it's just like I was too afraid to fully take that step until circumstances at the coffee shop just made it very clear that it was time for me to close that door and move on. And I think that had those doors not been closed, I don't know if I would have had the guts to actually ever leave just because it was safe. But I think that like circumstances closed those doors for me so I could be able to step in. And then whenever I had those doors closed, it was just very clear that the pickleball world then really opened up to me. So I don't know if I think that's probably the moment where I'd say pickleball really chose me at that point because it's like I had all these opportunities lining up that I had been working for like a year and a half, 2 years. And then at the right moment when that door closed, I was like, okay, now I have all this stuff in place. I feel like I can move into that and I'm going to be okay. So I would say that probably whenever I quit my safe job.
When you were in your safe job at the coffee shop, what were those opportunities you were working towards that you thought was your direction, but it actually turned out wasn't?
Like relating to the coffee shop or pickleball?
Coffee shop. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever really had like a super strong direction with that. I think it's just
Yeah.
I woke up every day. I liked it. I love the customers. I love touching people's lives and being a part of that, even if it was just for, 3 minutes handing them a drink through the window. I got to ask them how their day was. And I got very close with a lot of my customers and got to be a part of a lot of their lives in a really cool type of way. So I think that for that season, I really needed that from like pain that I had come out of previously, just to like get me back into feeling needed by somebody and to give me a purpose just to get out of bed. And so I think just developing relationships with all those customers that I had, and being a part of their life and working hard and building something in the community was really, really cool. And that's kind of where I think my purpose was at for that time.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what was that pain?
Yeah. So when I was 18, I got into a relationship with somebody that I'd known for a while. And, when you're 18, what do you actually know? You think you know everything, but we don't actually know anything. So that was a very humbling experience to actually be like, wow, I don't know anything at all about life. So I got in a relationship. It was going really, really well. I was just putting all of my eggs in that basket. And it ended up just ending in a very bad way. And I was just so devastated by it, and just like, really, really turned me upside down, because I had my 5-year plan, 10-year plan, like everything was lining up exactly how I wanted it. And I think when that happened and my entire plan just got shattered to pieces, it was just like, wow, I like feel so powerless in this situation, and like I'm hurt, I feel betrayed, like all these things. So just working through all of that for like a couple of years was a lot for me, and it really affected like my personality, really affected my mental state, really affected how I viewed myself as a person. So I think coming out of that and then going into the coffee shop, like finding, you know people that were hurting, I could relate to that because of that circumstance that I've been through, stuff like that I wouldn't have been able to have had I not gone through that. So I'm very, very thankful I had that. And I think it also kind of opened up my mindset to, take every day for what it is. Like, so what if you don't have a 5-year plan? That's totally fine. You miss the opportunities when you're so stuck on that plan. You miss all the opportunities around you because you've got your nose down. So I think that happening just really kind of opened up my mindset to be okay with not knowing what I'm doing and not having a plan for now.
So now, how did you stumble on into pickleball? So you're working at this coffee shop, right? You maybe friend called you and asked you to go play, but now you have a full career in it. So where did that career actually start?
Yeah, it was actually crazy. So I was seeing somebody at the time, and I was visiting his family, and it was during COVID. So it was 2020. So it was during COVID, and they were all thinking, like, what can we do that's, like being careful? We want to go out and do stuff, but obviously, like, we can't do very much. So his family was like, well, let's just go play pickleball. And I was like, excuse me, what? Like, I had never heard, I was like, that is the most ridiculous sounding thing I have ever heard of in my life, and it cannot be a real sport. Like, there's no way. And so they're like, "Oh yeah, let's just all go play pickleball." And so we went out, and they probably taught me like some of the rules and things like that, but I don't really remember actually learning about the game. Like, we were just out there hitting. They probably did. I just can't remember it. But then ended up so like a year later in 2021, I found out that our local park had courts built, and I told my brothers, I was like, oh yeah, like at this one point I had played this. I don't know how to do it, but like we should all just go out and play. So my brothers and I went out. We like got to the park and YouTubed how to play pickleball, and then we were just hitting around and stuff. And I saw people out there who looked like they knew what they were doing, and so I walked up to them after their game got over. I was like, hey, like what I saw this happening, like you're talking strategy, what does that mean? Like what are you trying to do? And so then they kind of like told me, well, here's the goal, here's like how you want to set up points. And I was like, whoa, this just opened, like my competitive nature is just like, I love this, because it's like a chess game on top of being active. Like, you are targeting, you're coming up with strategy, you're literally in seconds. So it's just like, I was so hooked when I found that out. I was just like, wow, there's so much more to this than what I actually thought. And so after that, like, I got into a local group, and they like traveled around to local tournaments, and they started inviting me to go to tournaments with them. And then once I played in a tournament, it was just like game over at that point. I was just so like invested in pickleball because like the competitive atmosphere in a tournament was just like thrilling to me. I loved it. So yeah, I would say 2021 is when I very first actually started playing. So I had played once before that in 2020 and then hadn't played since. But yeah, 2021 is when it all kick started.
So then you played on APP Next Gen for a little bit? Did you?
I did, yeah. So
Yeah.
I found that later. So I was already 20, I think I was 22 or 23. And
Okay.
so I played for, I think, a year. And I had literally just started playing pickleball like 4 or 5 months before that. So I had a huge, which the cool thing about pickleball is you can make really fast progress once you kind of start understanding the game. And then once you start getting into higher levels, then it gets down to like nitty gritty, like technical things that are really hard to switch that matter. So I made really, really quick advancements up to 5.0, and then I went and started playing in next gen. And at the time, you know, the level of play was totally different than what it is now. But fortunately, I did really, really well at some of the next gen tournaments. I can't say that the field of competition was the same as it is now, which is so cool to see. Some of these kids out there just blows my mind. Like they're incredible. I would get smoked if I played now, but yeah, so I had some success on the next gen tour, really enjoyed doing that. And yeah, that just kind of then took me into playing APP. And I love the APP tour. I played there for pretty much a year. I think I traveled and played with them. So love that tour.
And then because now you have a pretty good presence when it comes to being a creator and even an influencer in the pickleball space in the grand scheme of things, right? But I've also seen you at the courts taking content for other players, right? So tell me how you ended up now evolving into from playing to now
Mhm.
saying, I can make money doing something in this space. How did you choose what to do?
I think, you know, it's just a lot of experimentation and being okay with things not working out. Cause I don't consider that like a failure. I consider it a learning curve and it equips you for more the next time. You know, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And then, yeah, so I would say like as I started playing and I noticed the level increasing, you know, I was still working 2 jobs at the time. I would go out and drill and stuff, but like where I was living in Illinois, it was, um, the level of play just was not the same as it is on tour because, you know, stuff just gets to the Midwest a little bit slower than everywhere else in the world. But so it was pretty hard to like find really good pro level play. Like there were still some really good players that I would play with and I'm thankful for them. But so I would say I kind of started leaning away towards being a player and like focusing on a pro player career just because I was like, I don't think I actually have the ability to compete at that level long term. And I was okay with that. I was like, you know, I had a great run. It was awesome. Loved the experience. So then I was like, okay, not everyone can do content creation. Like it actually takes more than you think. And a lot of people just kind of brush into the rug and they're like, oh, it's not that hard. Like you just get in front of a camera and you just like do stupid stuff and like whatever. I'm like, no, there's a lot more to it than you think. So I was just like, okay, I have a knack at this. People tell me I'm good at it. They tell me they like my content. So what can I do with this? And at the time, there wasn't really a lot of media helping the players. So like I was thinking, you know, as a player, I want content of myself. Like that's the only way that sponsorships are gonna be looking at me. That's the only way that companies will recognize me. Like that's the only way players can get their name out there is social media. And so at the time, nobody had really tapped into that. And so I was like, well, why don't I just put out to players that you can hire me. I'll come courtside. I'll film your matches. I'll give you a couple of reels, and then you get all the individual footages to use later as you please. Because that's what I really wanted as a player. I was like, man, I would just love to have content of me playing that I could post so companies could see me. So I did that while I was touring with APP, and I was also working for the pickleball clinic at the time. And so I was recording stuff for them, recording for players. I would also play. I would record with like content for myself and for my brand with other players. So there was a lot happening every time I went to a tournament, but I loved it. I don't think I ever slept at all. I think I was averaging like 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night, like for a year. But it was great. Like I loved it. It just fueled me, like the creation, the excitement of it all. So yeah, so I think just realizing that not a lot of people were doing that at the time. It is a lot of work that a lot of people don't realize. So if you are wanting to kind of get into that media side of things, just be really go in with your eyes open and ready to work, because it is a lot, but it's super, super rewarding.
What made you start creating content in the first place?
It's so funny. I just kind of stumbled into, I've always been fascinated with social media ever since I was a kid. Like, I always followed creators. I always followed influencers. I was like, how do they do this? Like, how do they monetize? How do they like make people care about their lives? Like, it's so interesting to me how that can happen. Like, how do they make themselves not a celebrity, but kind of, so I think I posted a video. I was just out at the courts and I was like, oh, I found this funny audio. Like, I didn't even know how to make a reel. I think I got hit in the face when I was practicing. I was like, oh, this is funny. And I know that this audio is going. And it was so bad. I still have it on my page though, because never forget where you come from. So I still have it on there so everybody can see it where I started. But it was so bad and it was so cringe. But I had so many people, a few people DM me and they're like, oh my goodness, this happened to me today. Like, it's just so funny and so relatable. Like, I love that. Thank you for posting that. And I was like, oh, it's relatable. Like, a lot of people get hit in the face and it is funny. And I don't take myself too seriously. So to me, I was just like, oh, this is funny. Like, post it. I don't care. And so I think like once I figured out, I did a couple more posts of just things I was like, oh, this is kind of like relatable. Maybe a lot of people will think so too. And then I got a lot of feedback on it. And they're like, this is so fun. Like, this happened to me. Like, I do this, or I experienced this. And so I think it's just like, oh, same thing with the coffee shop. I love people. I love the relationship aspect. So I was like, oh, this is a place where people can come to feel relatable, where they're not the only ones that get hit in the face by a ball during practice. So I think that when I figured that out, I was like, oh, I can take these trending things and like put a pickleball twist on it. And not everybody is doing that right now. So why don't I just try? And it was kind of an outlet for me too. Like, it was funny and I love doing it. I love making people laugh, and I love making things just like, I don't know, low key. Like, let's all not take ourselves seriously. Like, we're all just doing our best out here, and laugh when you mess up. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, don't let your egos get in the way of just living life. So yeah, I think that's kind of, it was just fun.
So I do this fun thing on the court now when I have a miss or I f up. I'm just like, be good content, because obviously the fact of our entire narrative with the Fail First podcast is failing first, right? So now for me, an easy way for me to shrug it off, a miss that like maybe I shouldn't have had, but I did have. I'm like, great content. Let me clip that up. Um, the something that we brushed over that I want to touch on is you talked about working with the pickleball clinic. Was
Mhm.
that your first kind of, I'll say, gig or career opportunity in the pickleball space beyond just content creation?
Yeah, so I would say that I had been building up my personal page and my personal brand, and I got like a couple sponsorships through that, and then I started like collabing with players and things, and then I had met I met actually both the founders at one of the next gen tournaments,
Okay.
and they knew who I was. And then at that point, they followed me and they're like, oh, she kind of is like doing social media stuff. And then the brand was really small at the time. So they're like, hey, would you be willing? We're looking for a social media manager. Like, what would you think about coming and working for us? And so I was like, oh, this is a really cool opportunity just to like grow myself, learn a little bit more about like how to grow a platform and what that looks like. So they reached out to me after looking at my stuff and seeing that I kind of was like growing my own brand and my style and things like that. So yeah, I worked with them for almost 3 years, I think. And we did a lot together, a lot of building up of that platform, which was really cool. And I learned so much working with them. So I'm very, very thankful that I had that opportunity.
Did you have any imposter syndrome when you first started working with them?
With them, I would say I still have imposter syndrome. I don't think I'm ever gonna be able to shake it, no matter who I'm working with, or if it's just me. Like, yeah, I still struggle with that. Like, I had a situation happen recently where I was just like, I'm just not even good at this. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not good at making content, and it took me about a month. Literally, the month of December, I just took time off, and I was just kind of like mentally going through it and just like trying to figure out, are you letting circumstances dictate what you think about yourself and your ability to do things that you have a gift at? Or is this truly like the case of what you like? Is it actually true? And it came to the point where it's like, I went out and created content the other day and I was like, I am actually good at this. This is what I was made to do. And I love it. It's an outlet for me. I enjoy it. And so I still will have moments where I struggle so much with it, but it's like if you go out and do it and it makes you happy, what else is there? Don't let imposter syndrome take away your joy.
Absolutely. If you enjoy allocating your time to it, like, continue doing that. And then the kicker is, like, if you could find a way to make money doing it, like,
Mhm.
truly double down on that, right?
Absolutely.
Because even for, like, me, regardless of, let's say it's a competitor that comes into the space, let's say it is from a pickleball standpoint, pursuing it at a professional level, let's say I get my ass kicked in the qualifiers, I'm still going to wake up tomorrow and still train for pickleball because I just enjoy playing it.
Mhm.
So it's in those moments where I remind myself that, like, regardless of the outcome, I'm going to still do the same thing tomorrow, right? So for you, what keeps you motivated in those moments when things are tough?
That's a great question. These are really heavy hitters. I like it. I love talking about stuff like this. I think I don't know. I just enjoy it. I think my following keeps me motivated because, like,
Okay.
especially over the last month or so, a lot of people noticed that I kind of step back for a second, and they all reach out to me and they ask me like, what's going on. They check in on me. And I think that's just the coolest thing. Like people that I haven't actually met in person, but they've been following me literally since I first started doing this. And they still check in on me and they still keep up with me. So I think like them and my relationship that I have with these people who care about me on from just even never meeting me, I think it's just like the coolest thing. And so my following definitely keeps me motivated. They keep me on my toes. They ask me about my life. They want to see what's going on. My family is so good to speak into my life when I'm struggling with things, and they help me find balance and like what's true, what's not true, how can you grow, where can you learn, but like don't let circumstances hold you back from doing things like this. If I didn't have them, I probably would have quit a long time ago. But yeah, so I would say my family and my following, and then I just enjoy it. Like I said, it's an outlet for me. I'm a very creative person, and the thing with social media is it is truly limitless. And I think that there's so much expression in that, and that's just where I thrive. I love when there's no boundaries, there's nothing holding me back. I love just being able to go crazy if I wanted to. So I think, yeah, those things.
So what made you question your ability in the first place?
Um, That stems from I question myself a lot about everything that I do. And I think that it stems from partially my initial relationship breakup and how that ended made me question my personal value and like what I actually can bring to the table. And it's like if I am I even good enough to you know, all this stuff because if I was good enough, bad things would never happen to me. I would never, lose a job. I would never lose a boyfriend. I would never lose friends. Like I would never have these things happen if I was good enough. And that's such an unrealistic expectation to have with yourself because that's just not life. And like if everything good always happens, where are you ever going to learn? Because like you'll never actually know what success is unless you fail first. So like because failure defines success, right? We only know what works when we've figured out what doesn't work. And I just think that that's the coolest thing. But yeah, I think that it stems from a lack of like, do I truly believe in myself? And there are moments where I'm really doing well, where I'm like, yes, I can crush it. I can do anything I put my mind to and stuff like that. But then there's been some things that have happened like any time in life that just kind of blindsided me and hit me out of nowhere that really knocked me off my feet. And it's in those moments where I'm like, whoa, do I actually not have this in me? Like, do I not have this value that I thought, or like this confidence just kind of gets rattled inside me? But then, you work past it, you try and mentally think through it. I go to my family for advice, for counsel, and they're so good to help me through those times as well. So I think it's just going to be an ongoing battle no matter what you do. There's always going to be that feeling of, am I good enough? Until you just go for it and overcome.
Spot on. And I could not agree with you more. Because even I'll say recently with me and a sports psychologist that I'm working with, his name is Dr. Cassidy Preston. He kind of gave me this frame. So I had an injury recently and I had to pull out of, I don't know when this is going to come out, but APP Fort Lauderdale is obviously this weekend. So I was supposed to play in the qualifier.
No.
So what ended up happening is obviously I was like, I'm in training for so long. I've been playing very high level pickleball for a long time now. I'm like, why now? Right? Why now? And my sports psychologist framed to me and he said two things, which I'm smiling about it because he was just spot on. And he kind of has this awesome way of being blunt, but guiding at the same time.
Mhm.
He was like, do you really think pursuing a professional career, you would just be like healthy all the time? Like you would never have an injury and then there would be like never anything to overcome? And I'm like, no. And he's like, okay. So you have your first injury. Great. And then the second piece is like, do you think anybody wants to hear the story about just like someone winning all the time and like always finding success? Like nobody wants to hear that. Nobody really cares that you're winning all the time. People get tired of that, but people want to know that they have a relatable, genuine story of like navigating failure and overcoming injuries.
Mhm.
He was like, isn't that a much better story to tell? And I'm like, absolutely. So like referencing the fact that always what comes out of those unfortunately low times is a gift to some extent, some
Mhm.
greater than others, right? Some smaller than others, but it's always a learning opportunity. So I appreciate you reiterating that for the audience because I think that really hits home for so many people.
Yeah, and I definitely think that it's a thing of maturity to be able to realize that. Like that's just so huge. Like that perspective twist that he gave you is just mad and like it's a good thing. Like you're gonna learn so much. You're gonna learn how to take care of your body better. You're gonna learn
Absolutely.
better for tournaments or it just so there's so many good things to learn, but it takes a mature mindset to be able to recognize that. And that's going to be different for everybody, and I think just being aware of like, oh yeah, where is my maturity level at for this is huge. So like good for you for recognizing that, and like that's awesome.
Yeah, I won't say it was easy. I think all of us like to sit in the mud for a little bit and be like, why the hell now? Right. So I, I do want to emphasize that I just feel like the bounce back or the ability to reframe gets quicker and more efficient, right? All right, let's get a little bit into the details here because I think that many people are probably interested on how you've even gone about making money in this space, right?
Mhm.
So let's start with that first brand deal that you had. Did it just like fall in your lap or how did you go about it?
Oh, how did I go about it? So I think when I very first started, I was prioritizing getting my name out there. And so at the time, I wasn't getting money. I was just getting free products in exchange for like one reel or something like that, or one shout out of some kind. Because I was like, I really just want to grow my brand and get recognized right now. The money will come later. And so I started doing that, and then I started seeking like player sponsorships. So I think that for creators, it's tough because you have to decide almost if you want to be a creator or you want to be a player. I don't know if you can do both, and maybe some people can, but I figured out that I could not. So just separating those categories helped me a lot, and so I started chasing after more player sponsorships and stuff like that, and less on the creator side. And so I reached out. I saw there was, I think, an ad I saw online of a paddle company that was just launching called Ace Pickleball, and I just loved the look of the brand. I'm so particular with like the brands that I pick to align myself with because I'm like, if I don't like how they look, I'm not gonna wear it or I'm not gonna use it because I want to. I'm kind of a bougie girl, so I'm like, I want it to look good if I'm gonna use it. And I just love like the look of their brand just hit me. I was like, I really like that brand. Looks sleek. The paddles are really cool. Like I love just how they look. And so I actually reached out to them and DM'd them. Also, side note, if you have a platform or a little bit of a following on social media, DM companies through that and not so much emailing because then they can look at your profile and they can kind of see what you're about. So hot take there. Um, But yeah, so I DM'd them through Instagram, and then they reached back out to me, and we just started talking a little bit, and then we set up a call and just had like such a genuine conversation. I just think the world of Will, who's one of the founders of that company. Like, we just had such a great first conversation about like what I was about, what they were about, how they wanted to grow the company, like what did it look like with me coming into that. And I think like that just kicked off a great partnership with them. I think I worked with them for 2 years, and they were just amazing. So they were my first paddle sponsor. Very, very supportive. So thankful for them. And then, yeah, so after the 2 years, I had the opportunity for more sponsorships as a player, but at that point, I was like, I'm not really playing as much anymore. And I don't see myself really sticking with that just because the game is evolving so much. The I don't have all the money to get like trainers and gyms and all this stuff. And, I was working through things in my personal life that just, it didn't make sense. And so I gave up the dream of being a pro player, which now I'm so thankful. Like, I had a great run. I'm so happy that I did it, but I'm so much more designed to be a creator. And so then I started seeking opportunities to work with companies as a creator. And so what that has looked like is I dropped all my sponsorships so I could openly work with whatever brand I wanted to. Now, with that, didn't mean that the money was coming in just naturally from a contract, but rather freelancing is a little bit more risky, I would say. But fortunately, I've had my following built up for a while. So I have had a lot of companies that have I've been working with and showing interest and stuff like that, and always communicating. So yeah, it's now just turned into I have like my pricing. I send it when they reach out and they say, hey, if we send you products, like, would you be willing to like work out a deal with us? And so then I send them my pricing and we pick out like what we want to do. Sometimes we get on calls and things like that. And then, yeah, I create content from that. So it's basically just like freelancing almost with companies now.
At what point in that creator growth journey did you notice that it was almost like a little bit of a breakthrough? Meaning, at like 5,000 followers, was it there? At 2,500, was there a certain number of views where you were like, okay, I'm getting eyeballs now, right? Because I definitely know you had a couple pieces of content, actually a bunch of pieces of content that have done way over 500,000 and a bunch over 1,000,000, right? So with that being said, where on that growth curve as a creator did you start to notice that people were reaching out to you or wanting to work with you?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say there was a particular number of followers, but I think that whenever I made the switch of, okay, I'm going to be a creator now, I'm going to start posting consistently, I'm going to start creating themes with my content so people know exactly my niche. And so I think when I kind of got myself more organized and in a direction, then that gave the companies more of a, okay, so this, we align with her with this, we like her content, that. And I think that when I started posting consistently, is when I really started seeing a lot of engagement, a lot of community engagement, a lot of company engagement. So yeah, I don't think it was a particular amount of followers. I think it was when I was consistent.
What maybe today is probably different than it was then, but what is your consistency now? Is it one post a day? Is it one every other day? Was it way more then and you've kind of said, hey, I'll do a little bit higher quality, less post? What does it look like from then till now?
Yeah, that's a great question because I've kind of been back and forth. Even still, like I go back and forth on like my routine, my scheduling, and stuff like that. So right now, I typically only post reels and they're a lot more work. So I typically do one reel a day. I was told to do 2 posts a day. And I was just like, for the sake of longevity, for my mental, my energy, I have got to stick with 1 post a day for now. Like, I can't handle doing 2 reels if I want to have a life, enjoy that, and not just always be creating wherever I go. Cause like there is times now where I'm just like, I just don't even want to bring my phone out. Like, I just really want to live in this moment because I think as a creator you can get wrapped up in always filming something, or I have to catch every single moment, and then you live through your phone. So I think for me it's just setting boundaries with myself and just saying like 1 post a day. I'll go out once a week and I'll create 5 pieces of content that'll get me through, and then maybe Saturday. I don't post on Sundays. I just take that day completely off. So I'll do 5 or 6 posts at one time, and then I have that for the week, and then I can edit like as I go. So that's what I would say. A lot of people recommend doing 2 posts a day, either like 2 reels or, a photo carousel and then a reel. And maybe at some point I'll do that. But for right now, I'm just sticking with 1 post a day. And, recently I've been going through a lot in like my personal life and trying to figure things out, and that I stepped away during that time. So maybe I would put out a post every 3 or 4 days. Maybe it was only a carousel photo post, maybe every 5 days. So I think it's just what you can do while protecting yourself, because if you burn out, you'll never get numbers back. Because I was panicking. I was like, oh my gosh, numbers are going, like, at one point my numbers were like in the millions of what I was reaching, and it was just like such a high for me. And so then I was just like pushing myself to maintain that, like always get more, always do this. And I was just killing myself slowly. And with that went my creativity, which is what I was like being like monetizing on. So without that, you don't get all the other things. So I was talking to my mom about it. I'm like, I'm just so burnt out, but like I have to keep my numbers up. I have to do all these things. Like I can't let this go down. And she was like, if you don't protect yourself now and let yourself rest, and maybe your numbers will go down. She's like, if you don't do that, you're going to burn out, and then you'll never get those numbers back, period. Like you can get those numbers back anytime you want. So rest and then go back at it again. So I think just protecting yourself and what you can realistically, consistently do is what you should do, regardless of what anybody else says.
That time of burnout that you had, what was that like for you at the time? How did you navigate it?
Honestly, it freaked me out. I am a very energetic person. I'm never tired. I live off of the high of life. And so I think for me, when I experienced it, I didn't know what it was. Like, I was like, why do I feel like this is so not how I am? Like my creative like stems just went totally out. Like I could not create a single piece of content. Like I just felt utterly brain dead, and I was exhausted physically. And I was like, I'm not even doing anything. Like, what is this? And so I think, like, I talked to my parents a lot during that time. So I was just like, I don't know what I'm feeling, but something's not right. And so just recognizing, oh, you've burnt yourself out because you spent a year traveling on tour, playing, working. Like there were so many nights where I would do a red eye flight and work for 36 hours at a tournament, and then sleep for 3 hours that night and then do it again the next day. Like so many tournaments, I did that for a year. And it finally caught up with me. And, I recently moved to Florida, and I was just on the high of like finding all these things to do and like getting connected with all the players down here and creating content and all this stuff and traveling and this and that. And it's just like absolutely hit me in the face. And then I was just like totally thrown off. So yeah, I think I'm still honestly recovering. Like, I don't think I've fully bounced back, because when I hit that burnout, I did have a couple of personal things happen that added to that knockout. And so it's like I'm still trying to navigate that even like in this moment. But I think I'm finally starting to get back over the hump of things. I'm starting to have like my creative aspects of my life come back. I'm starting to enjoy it again. I'm starting to get back on a healthy system and schedule. So yeah, it's definitely it threw me for a loop. I was not expecting that. So I think being able to recognize before you get to that point, because I didn't recognize it. Like, yeah, I was getting tired and I was feeling something, but I was like, oh, just push through. Like, just push through. But I think getting to the point where you can recognize that about yourself before you reach that full like pancake is massive.
Yeah. Alluding to my injury, the reason it occurred is because I was pushing through an illness. And I said, I have the qualifiers right around the corner. I need to keep up. I have to push through. I can do it. And then little did you know, I sprained my ACL. So
Oh,
because of it,
it was.
luckily though, good news. It was only a grade 1 sprain. So it was only 2 to 4 weeks. So, which is good. And the optimistic side of it is saying like, hey, I train every single day so that when I'm in that position, this is all that happens, right? Rather than blowing out my knee, because that's 8 to 9 months. But getting to the point there, it's truly being able to recognize when you need rest and recovery. And it's funny how when you are able to free up brain capacity, your best creative thoughts come out of it.
Amen.
So I just, once again, I don't know when this is coming out, but there's an episode that is with a neuroscientist, Dr. Scott Frey. We talk all about brain capacity. And the way that he references it is the fact that it's like a gas tank. You can only fill it so much. And when it's out, it's out. So you can work on building a little bit of a bigger gas tank, but nothing crazy. But really what I'm getting at is when you only have so much gas to use on a daily basis, and like you said, you're running at that point on fumes, there is no room or energy to apply it to a creative lens or even think about future. You're just consistently running through the same thing every single day and you have no energy to use otherwise. So that took me a while to do as well. And I thank you for sharing that because those times that we all reflect on aren't often easy to share. But once again, it's where you see so much growth and recognizing that for your own health. It's like, if I enjoy doing this once again on a daily basis, I'm going to continue doing it, but I need to protect my own health or else I'm not going to do it at all. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get a little bit back into the details about one, collaborating with brands, and two, how to go about them. Because I think those are a lot of the details that people are curious about. So let's use, we'll call it John. Well, unfortunately, your last name is Smith, but I was going to say like John Doe or John Smith, but we'll say John Doe.
Okay.
Wants to be a pickleball influencer, right? Loves pickleball, getting into the space, has been posting, let's say for 3-4 months now, keeping up with the trends, knows the players, knows what's going on a little bit, but doesn't necessarily know how to start making money from it or even where to go or how to reach out. Where would you start one with reach outs? You'd mentioned DMs. Is it only DMs? And if it is only DMs, have you recognized that there is a minimum number of reach outs it takes to get a response?
That's a great question. I personally have found success by DMing. I haven't really tried a lot of other avenues just because I have been successful with just talking to hands with companies. So what other avenues would look like, I can't speak on that because I don't know. But as far as I would just DM as many companies as you can. And it doesn't matter if only one responds, maybe you'll get 5 responses, maybe you'll get all of them to respond. Just don't ever not reach out for fear of being told no, because 90% of the time it is going to be a no. But for maybe the 10%, you're going to get a yes. And maybe that yes will be massive. Maybe it's a company, like a huge company that you're like, there's no point in even doing this. But what if you have something that they want and they say yes? And then that just puts you right on the map. So just always go after it. Being told no is not personal. It's just not for you. And that's okay. So I would say, yeah, be realistic with what you're asking for. So initially, whenever I first started and I had a very small following, I was just doing swaps for recognition. And then with that, I was able to build it. And now I have the right or the privilege to ask for money because I did the groundwork at first. It's just, you can't walk in not known and be like, give me all this stuff. You have to have some self-awareness with that, I think. And maybe if you're a massive name already coming in, that's totally different. But if you're starting from the ground up, respect the companies and don't try to just rob them for the sake of getting money. Know your value, know your worth. I totally am a proponent for that, but also be realistic with where you're at and what you can offer them as far as your audience goes. If you don't have a big audience, you don't have a lot to offer them at the time. So just don't try to uppercut them in any way, because then they won't want to work with you in the future if you're being unrealistic with what you're asking. So I would say as your following grows, you have the right to ask for more because you've put more work in, you've put more time in, you know how to edit better, all these things. And so that does warrant more money from the company. So I would say, yeah, just reach out to as many as possible. And maybe they're not huge names that get back with you, but so what? I mean, it's a great opportunity for you to get exposure, for their audience to see you, a great chance for you to prove how you can make content for them. And then other companies will see that. So you get to prove yourself. And yeah, I think that it's just a growing opportunity just to see what works and what doesn't, and just to go crazy with it.
What does that DM look like? Give us an example.
So whenever I'm talking with companies, so originally when I was, most of the time companies reach out to me now, which I'm very appreciative of. If they're like bigger companies, then I'll reach out. But if it's just like a few paddle companies, like they typically reach out to me after seeing my content and they'll be like, hey, love your content, love what you do. I really feel like we could work well together. Would you be interested in doing that? And then I will say, like, yes, I would definitely, if I like the look of their brand and I think their stuff looks cool, then I'll be like, hey, like, I would definitely be interested in working with you. I'm only taking paid collaborations at this time. If you're interested in that, I can send over my pricing details. And then if they say like, oh, we only want to do like a gift exchange, like we'll send you products in exchange for content, then I'll be like, if I really, really like the product and I think that there's good merit to it and I can maybe get money in the future, or it's a brand that has a massive amount of exposure, if I do collaborate with them, like their audience would see me, then I would probably be like, okay, I would be happy to do one post in exchange for that, just so I can get their audience's eyes. But if it's, if it doesn't really feel like there's that in it for me, then I'll just be like, okay, if we can't do like a paid collaboration, then I'm going to pass on this, but I really appreciate you reaching out. But then if they're like, yeah, like let's look over pricing details and then we can set up a call and discuss like which one we want, and then like what in particular we're looking for content wise. So that's kind of what that looks like. If I were reaching out to companies, I would just say like, hey, really love your product, really love what you guys are doing. I love the look of your brand. I'm an influencer, and I would really like to create content with you guys. Can we talk about what that would look like if you're interested? Something like that.
I love that. I love that. The reason that I wanted the details of that was because I think people always are like, okay, let me reach out, but then get stopped at, I don't know what to say, right?
Mhm.
And then end up never sending the DM in the first place. When realistically, it's just like send away. If nobody responds, like iterate, like change
Yes.
the DM a little bit, try to target something else and iterate from there, right?
Yes, and I would say just be you. Like companies are so sick of the cookie cutter, professional. What like they have seen it all. They have seen all of those people. They have that in their DMs all the time.
Yeah.
Be different, be authentic, be you, and just like, so what if maybe it doesn't sound super professional, or like if it's you, if you're being real with them, I would be like, I want that, because those people are genuine and their following is going to see that, and that is what is attractive. Not all the, and here I am. Therefore, I would like to, none of that. Like nobody wants to see that.
So what I have a question that I didn't know I was going to ask, but I want to ask it anyways.
Shoot, let's do it.
What is the time to do free content versus creating and doing a paid collaboration?
That's a great question, and one that I'm still kind of like in between two. For me personally, some other people might disagree with this, but for me personally, I have found that if I really like the product, number one, and they have a growing following or a large audience where I could grow my following by collaborating with them, to me, that's worth it. Because like at this point, I'm advanced enough in my own content creation, scheduling, and abilities where if I were to make, it depends on what they're looking for, but if I were to make just like a fun little piece of content, that doesn't take me super long because I'm better at planning out now and editing. So I am more advanced in that. So to me, it's like, okay, it doesn't call for that much effort on my part, but I could still get their audience to see that. I could get the company or like the higher ups, maybe eventually they'd be like, actually, we really want to make this official and work with you and have a set amount of content that you give us every month. We can use those to run as advertisements. Like it has led to me having that now. So I think just like being willing to bite the bullet sometimes. And if the product is good and they have a big following, to me, I will do it one time. If they're asking for more, I'd be like, okay, can we talk about percentage cut? Can we talk about set payment? Something like that is kind of where I've fallen into.
So if I recognize correctly, you recently did a little collab with Holbrook, right?
Yes.
What did that collaboration, if you can speak on it, what did that partnership, that collaboration actually look like? How was that structured?
So I don't know if I can speak on it yet. I have we're talking. And so
Okay.
I will just say, like, sometimes taking things and just proving your worth to those companies pays off. And so I like to do that sometimes with companies that I want to work with. Like, I think Holbrook is a great company. I've heard nothing but good things from players, from other businesses. So like, I genuinely wanted to work with them. And then once I made that video, I heard back from them. And so we've been in communication because of that. So sometimes you just have to show companies what your worth is, you know? And if they're wanting to take advantage after you put that initial first post out there, then that's when I would check and be like, okay, I did one. You see what I'm about. You're wanting more. You're probably trying to just take what you can get at this point, and I'm going to stop you right there. So don't be afraid to maybe do one post just to see, because like now that I did that, I have a great working relationship, and they're like, we really love this. Like, we want to get in contact. Like, let's be talking about what we can do from here on out. So that's kind of where that's at right now. That's probably all I should say.
No, that's perfect. That really references the fact for me of, and for the audience, on when to determine for you to do free content versus paid, and
Mhm,
how to leverage showing somebody your value rather than just like hoping they believe you, right?
mhm.
Really taking action and showing them. Can you talk to us now about how we'll use the Holbrook piece as an example while it's on the topic? What's your creative process that led you to make that piece of content? And because it performed very, very well, very, very well. So that creative process that you do go through, what led you to create that?
Yeah, I think the first things to think about is if you are using a product, the world of social media is so fickle. They don't want you to put a product in their face and say, buy this. So you have to make it sneaky where you have to make them want it without them realizing they want it. So with the Holbrook thing, the I really love organic content creation, and I love that companies are jumping on that and finding creators to make just like everyday people, because that's so much more appealing than like, you know, a celebrity who you don't know at all is talking about a product they actually know nothing about, but they're just getting paid to do it. So with the Holbrook, they sent me all these amazing paddles, and I was like, "Oh my word, this is like I'm a kid in a candy shop right now." And so I was looking through all the paddles, and I was just like, "There's so many here. How do I feature all of these in one video, just to, like, grab people's attention? Because I want them to see all these paddles. Like, this is crazy." And so I did a this or that. And sometimes, so they sent me like a 16 millimeter versus a 14 millimeter of the same paddle, and I was like, "Oh well, which one would I pick to play with?" Well, now I know, like, I would just do that. And so it's sometimes like, for me, it's like, okay, I want to show all of these products in a fun way that is engaging and not making people feel like they have to buy the product, but now that they want to buy the product. So with the Holbrook, I just displayed the paddles and I said which one I wanted. Doesn't have anything to do with you. It was me choosing the paddle and also showing how great they all looked and how excited I was. You know, smile on my face. Energy is everything. Like, have a smile on your face. Like, be super excited. Like, even if you feel like you're being so overboard, it doesn't come across like that. So I was just like, every time I'd pick a paddle, I was always like, yeah, like, this is what I'm going with, and just excited about it. So that's kind of how I came up with that. Usually, if I'm working with a particular product, I try to highlight it in a very sneaky way where it seems like I am the one that is most excited by this. And then my audience or following or whoever is just like, oh, she really likes this. Now I want to see what it's about. If she's really liking this, then there has to be something cool about it. And now I want to try it. So it's just kind of playing into that a little bit.
The reason I asked that question is because what seems so simplistic in the content that you create has so much genius, right?
Thank you.
Because you're like you just said, you're providing somebody an organic, intriguing piece of content and getting them to recognize a product without them ever thinking they're being sold on anything, right? So, and it's highly engaging. It's easy to watch, easy to interact with, and very relatable, right?
Mhm.
Because there is plenty of people who pick up two different paddles, hold them in their hands, and like, which one do I want, etc. So
Mhm.
that's why I say there is so much genius in the simplicity of how you make your content, honestly.
Thank you so much. And I think that to touch on that really fast,
Yeah.
I would not stress, like, yes, plan and think through what you're going to do, but don't overthink it. Because when you
Mm.
overthink it, you end up doing way more than what you have to. And that's not what people want to see. They just want to see everyday people just like themselves experiencing something that they can relate to. So, if it's super overdone, nobody can relate to that. Nobody's experienced something like that. So, just keeping it plain and simple and just basic is best, or at least I have found that it has been what has helped me a lot.
So considering the rapid growth of pickleball and honestly the continuously adapting landscape of social media, how do you how do you really continuously innovate to stay relevant? Because as you know, like not only is pickleball as an industry fast moving, but so is social media. So for you to constantly stay up with trends and constantly be relevant, what do you do to really continuously innovate?
Yeah, that's a great question. Before December, my answer would have been I was on social media constantly, constantly. And especially like when I was working with the pickleball clinic, it's a news platform. And so if there's something happening in the pickleball world, we had to be on top of it first because we're a news thing. Like you need to be the one telling the story as a news platform. So I was just on my phone constantly, like looking up. I follow a lot of different creators that are saying of like what trends are coming up or what changes are being made to social media and stuff like that. I listen to a couple of different podcasts, just always trying to adapt my capabilities and grow in them. Because you just never want to get stagnant. The moment that you stop growing is the moment that you're failing, really. So I would say, after December to now, I am limiting like my time spent and I'm trying to be more intentional with seeking out like what's trending, because honestly, with how social media works, you can see what's trending in about 5 minutes of being on your For You page. So you don't need to spend a lot of time on there. And then it's just taking that trending, knowing like what the audio is or like what the trend is, taking that, boxing it up, getting off your phone, and then thinking about that in your context out in your world and not just sitting there looking at everybody else's trends of what they're doing with that. So yeah, I would say just try to limit doom scrolling because I did that a lot. And I think that that can be just as bad as trying to use it as an excuse to stay up with all the trends because then you end up killing your creativity anyways.
Absolutely. Pivoting a little bit, you recently branched off into something pretty new for you, which is with Empower Her Pickleball Retreat. So the reason that I wanted to bring that up is because although it's in the same space, it's a little bit of a branch off. And I want to know what made you really join their team in the first place and even want to pour time into something like a women's only pickleball retreat.
Yeah. So to start off, I'm totally fine talking about this, but just to state, I recently left working, so we are no longer working together.
Okay.
Not under bad circumstances, but which is kind of cool to talk about too. So with that opportunity was presented to me, and again, kind of going back with the coffee shop, I love people. I love interacting and engaging with people. I love being a part of their lives and pouring into them. And so with the Empower, I had gone on, I knew Cassandra. I had met her playing on tour, and she had said that she was kind of building up this women's only brand. And I just love that. Like, I'm a huge proponent for like what women can do. And I love that pickleball is, I truly think pickleball is honestly one of the only sports that highlights how valuable women are in the sport. Like if you have a good women's mixed player or women's doubles being the most watched event, Like, to me, that is just the coolest thing, and I haven't seen another sport really offer that for women as much. So I was like, when she said, I was like, I love that. And so she had reached out to me saying like, hey, I need somebody like capturing content just so I can like get this out there. Would you be willing to come on a trip and do that for me? And so I was like, what a cool opportunity. And so I went with her to Punta Cana, and it just like changed my life. Like the relationship that I got to have with these women who were older than me, so I could hear their stories, and they have so much wisdom to pour into me as a young person walking into, this new stage of life of, figuring out how to be an adult, how to do all these things. And I just loved it. I love the women. They're so supportive. They were so encouraging of me. And I was the youngest person there for all of the retreats. So I just had like 80 grandmas looking, like all my own grandmas looking out for me and just loving me and appreciating me and encouraging me. So it was really, really cool. And then I officially got asked to work with the team in August. And at that point is when I moved to Florida as well. So a lot of life changes happening with that. And so I worked with them for like 4 or 5 months. And then in December, we kind of had a talk about revisiting like, how things were going. And my style of content wasn't quite what they wanted for 2025. I'm a very trendy person, and my content is very trendy. And for business, like sometimes that's just not going to be what works. And initially I took that as I failed. I could not make the content that this business needed. I couldn't make the like corporate style content. And so I was really wrestling it with the imposter syndrome. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not good at this. Like it was a fail. And they didn't even tell me that. They didn't say, they're just like, we think we need a little bit of a different look in 2025 for a business, which is totally understandable. But to me, all I heard was, you're not good enough. You failed. You couldn't make what we liked. And that's not at all what they said. So just working through that with myself and realizing my personal style is not going to align with all these other businesses. And that's totally fine, because it will align with all of these other things. So I think it's just like taking what you can from those circumstances and growing in that, and taking the constructive criticism or like what you learned, or even learning to recognize who you are. Like I recognized, oh, I am a trendy creator. I don't do corporate. That's just not who I am. I'm not in the box like that. And so that kind of opened my eyes up to who I am and what I am truly good at. And, specific companies will be looking for that, and then others won't. And that's totally fine. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like I had the coolest opportunity working with them and meeting all those women and them pouring into me. And it was just something that I will always cherish. But yeah, so recently split from them, and I'm just kind of freelancing my way through things right now.
At what moment did you recognize that? Because that's not an easy thing to recognize.
Yeah.
Meaning, I'm molding my content to me and who I am, rather than trying to mold the content to your client or consumer.
Yeah. And I think so. I get these opportunities to work from people looking at my page and what my content is. And so then it's like I became a social media manager, and I did that for 2 years after I left the coffee shop. And I was creating other people's style of content. And it was so, I enjoyed it, but it also drained me in a way because it's not me. And so with the Empower, it was closer to that. And I did get to create that trendy, that fun style of content. But then when they were evaluating for 2025, they were like, does this make sense? And for a business, for a corporate style business, not really. And so like on their part, I totally get it. But for me, it's just like, yeah, like it was really, really hard. I called my parents. I was just like, am I not cut out for this? Like, am I not good at this? Because if I were good enough, why did it not work out? And so that was a really hard thing for me to recognize and just understand, like, it's not that you're not good enough, and it's not that they have a problem with you. It's just that it's not meant to be. And that's totally fine. And I have so many more like things to offer inside my realm, just like they have things inside their realm to offer. So I think it's just recognizing that not every opportunity is for you, but there are lessons to be learned in each one. And they help you grow more as a person and just recognize things about yourself that you wouldn't have known otherwise. I wouldn't have thought, oh yeah, I am a trendy style of creator. Corporate styles will drain me and it won't be top quality because that's not where my value lies. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that because there's so many right things inside that genre for me. So I think just, yeah, it was very, very eye opening. And I literally just finished processing that like right after New Year's. And now I'm like, okay, I'm back.
I thank you for sharing that, because that is, I think a lot of creators and influencers struggle to recognize that. They come across a great opportunity and they're trying to mold their content to what the client is looking for. And granted, there's a piece of that that is true, but when reflecting on it, you always have to recognize if this partnership is also good for you in the long term, right?
So
And
cute.
right? And are you getting pouring energy into them? I think that is a piece that's always learned along the way, as you've just spoken to. But I think at least if you know that's on your radar as a creator and have it as awareness when you run into it, it's easier to navigate,
Amen. I love that.
right?
That's,
So now that it's 2025, looking forward, what is one personal challenge that you're eager to tackle in your journey starting this new year?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot because I've been running at such a fast pace for the last 3 years. I haven't actually stopped to think about what do I really want and where am I
Mm.
going? I've just been going and I don't know where. And so um I I really for what I am good at and what I enjoy is making people smile and making people laugh and making them feel like they're not alone in things. And it's taken a lot more out of me to be more vulnerable about things in my life because it's so easy to keep things on the surface level. And it's really, really hard to be vulnerable on social media, or at least I have found it to be hard to be vulnerable because, you're just showing when things aren't easy. And once it's out there, it's out there. And so I think for 2025, I am looking to branch a little bit more into lifestyle content and still have pickleball there, but just talk more about my life and like what I'm going through and what that looks like. And maybe that will help others because, your 20s are really hard. I'm going to be 26 in February and I am learning so much right now. It's crazy. And if I can give people shortcuts to what took me so much longer to learn, I would love to do that. So I think it's just like learning to be more vulnerable and exploring a little bit more lifestyle content and less just pickleball, and bringing a little bit of a deeper value, and showing more of my deeper side rather than just being funny, being relatable, all these things, which I love. I think I want to show a little bit more of how I process things, a little bit more the deeper side of me that most people don't really see.
So we're gonna get a little behind the scenes of Elly Smith in 2025. That's what we're gonna get.
I hope so. If I can keep myself brave enough to stick with it.
Uh, I appreciate you wanting to be that vulnerable because you're right. It's something that there's not enough of. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
So we have our two closing questions.
Okay.
I'll give you the first one. What is one failure you're thankful for?
Oh man. Is it bad if I said I'm thankful for all of them?
Not
Like,
bad.
but we need to be more specific. Okay.
Yeah, give me one. Give me one.
Okay. It's
Could be
it's
recent, could be past. Doesn't have to be pickleball related.
okay. Um it's so hard because all of them have set me on a different path every time to get where I'm at now. And I'm so thankful for each one in their own way. Okay. I would say my initial, when I was 18, I would say that breakup is
Mm.
honestly what really matured me the most. And I think it prepared me. And inside that season of when I was hurting so deeply over that, I just kind of floated through things. But like in that time, I started working for a professional photographer. So I became her full-time editor. I started working for a clothing company that was local, and I started doing modeling for them, of course, customer service with that. I ended up opening a coffee shop with my friend at the time, again, customer service and relations. So all of those things were so key. And at the time, it was like this, like my scope was so small and it seemed so insignificant. It was just a reason for me to get out of bed every day. But looking back, it was in that time where all of those things make me who I am now for what I'm doing. Like if I wouldn't have had that, I would never be able to do what I'm doing right now. And not just do it, but also appreciate it and not let it all go to my head. Not that I'm even that big of a name or anything like that, but it's just like I've had some really cool opportunities and I have such a heart of thankfulness for that, rather than thinking, oh, I deserve this, or yeah, this is just how it's supposed to be, you know? So I would say that moment and that season is probably the failure that I'm most thankful for, because in that, like, gave me all the skills that I need for right now, I think.
You feel like it was just really a launch pad into the
Yes.
rest of your trajectory?
Yeah, really, I think so. And it was the hardest one. Like, I've never experienced anything that bad since, but I think that I really needed to hit that rock bottom to be able to just keep building up.
So our last question.
Okay.
What is your greatest fear moving forward?
These are so heavy. Greatest fear. It's so hard because I hold myself to such a high standard of just whatever I like. I push myself constantly. And I think it would be not doing the best that I could with what I have, I think.
I think kind of where you were leading to is like this, because I totally am right there with you, is this fear of just regret,
Mm-hmm.
of just looking back when you're 85 and saying that I didn't try this and I wanted to try this, or I didn't allocate my time to that, or I didn't give my full effort. So for me, and it seems like that sits with you a little bit, is just like that fear at the end of the day, you're going to have any regret that you didn't do it.
Yeah. Amen. Like, you just can't, to me, I could not live with a clear conscience knowing I had an opportunity and didn't take it for fear of not getting it right. Or like, what fear is that? Like, what do we put on ourselves where we miss those opportunities because we're like, oh, if I don't do it perfectly, who's going to do anything perfectly the first time they try something? Like, that's such an unrealistic expectation to have. And I think just like I could never, like, if I would not have pursued trying to play pro, it didn't work out. But I'm so glad that I know it didn't work. I know I'm not supposed to play pro pickleball now because I tried. And I think that, like, if you can't take opportunities and try them and just see where they go, like, how could you ever live life like that? Like, you'll just never know. And that would kill me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Elly Smith, thank you for being on the podcast today. I just thank you for sharing so much knowledge, especially in the creator space where I don't think that is shared enough, especially at a candid level. Truly, I think there's too many money grabs these days and not enough transparency for sure. So I appreciate beyond what you know, just sharing that with us on this podcast and everybody else that is listening. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys so much. I love what you're doing. I love how real and raw you guys are, you and Nicole both. I just think the world of you guys, and I just love what you're doing, and just keep doing it. It's just amazing. So thank you for having me on. Like, I greatly appreciate this opportunity, and it makes me so happy to see what you guys are doing.